again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm your host, John. Hello. So, today we're going to take a look at some skeptics. Here we go. Paranormal skeptics of Reddit. What is the most unexplainable thing that has ever happened to you? Serious. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I work on a very small tropical island. The island had a couple miles of beach and the rest was cliffs, with the whole island being basically a big hill. I was docked, the only dock on the island. I was working on a project tracking nesting sea turtles, which meant that overnight, I patrolled the length of the beach on a set schedule with a few other volunteers. It's the kind of place where the only way there's a small boat and absolutely no one lives there. The project had me there all night, then I boated back to the mainland and slept all day. One night, there was a light up on the hill that was moving across the hill, kind of like a runner with a headlamp, except that there was no place up there for a runner to run. Vegetation was too dense, and it was moving too fast to be a person with a machete. To this day, I don't know what it was. My best guess is someone with a big laser was for some reason pointing it at the island, but the mainland was a mile away at the closest point. So why anyone would do that, I have no idea. Could have been a boat doing it from closer, but no one was anchored at the island the night with a view of the forest where the light was jogging along. These days, I'd assume a drone, but this was more than 10 years ago. Drones were basically unheard of, and for one to be there and at night, absolutely no reason for it. Plus, the only place close enough for a drone to come from where I wouldn't see the pilot was anchored at the back of the island in a reef, out of sight of the flying light. Plus, I don't even know if publicly available technology was capable of what I was seeing, so that's as unlikely as the laser. While at sea in the middle of nowhere at night, something that appeared to be a large, translucent, glowing butterfly showed up and was flying next to the ship. We were going fast, and it was keeping up, while flying up and down at different heights. It almost looked like a fairy from Zelda, but without the light ball part. A friend of mine was outside with me, and we saw it at the same time, so I know it wasn't my imagination. Everyone laughed at it when we told them what we saw, and to this day, I have no idea what it could have been. Still a skeptic, but have an experience that I can't explain. We were on a Boy Scout trip in northern Wisconsin. Our scoutmaster took us to an obscure roadside park that was known for having earthen circles built up from when it was a native village. As soon as we stopped the van, our scoutmaster's dog bolted from the car and straight into the woods. This was an extremely old and well-trained hunting dog, and it was totally out of character for him to run off. We could hear him howling and howling off in the woods. We ran after him and found him pacing in circles around a clearing about a quarter mile back through some of the densest woods I've ever walked. In the middle of the clearing was a small headstone from the 1890s that belonged to a 4-year-old boy. We began to look around and noticed that in the clearing, the woods were totally calm, despite it being a breezy day. There was also no bird noises. The dog kept pulling wildly towards the headstone in the middle of the clearing. Suddenly, it was like things snapped back to normal. The dog stopped pulling, the birds started chirping, and the breeze kicked back up. I actually got one. While I love reading about supernatural stuff, I don't believe in any of it. Neither gods nor ghosts or the afterlife is real to me. Anyway, this happened in my early 20s. Me and my friends were at a lake just chilling, drinking, and smoking. I was the driver, so I was sober. We had a set of cards because there was a poker hype at the time in Germany, and we played pretty much every day. We started to play guessing cards, where one would hold up a card and the other one would have to guess. Here's the unexplained supernatural part. When it was my turn, I closed my eyes and I actually saw a card. It would start out super tiny, as if very far away, and then rush towards my face and through me. This happened 5 times in a row, and each time the card was actually the right card. Each time, though, the card would be faster than the last card, with the 5th and last card being so fast that I couldn't make it out properly and could only tell its color. After that, it just stopped, and nothing like this has ever happened again. Now, from the outside, this probably doesn't sound super exciting, just someone getting pretty lucky guessing some cards. But the thing is, for me, I didn't guess at all. I literally saw these cards before my inner eyes. As for an explanation, I don't have a good one. My best guess is it is some kind of false memory. The card guessing happened, of course, and my friends remembered as well, but me seeing the cards could be a false, fabricated memory, I guess. The probability of this happening 4 or maybe 5 times in a row are pretty astronomical if they're using the entire deck of cards, so maybe not paranormal, but very interesting nonetheless. Me and my boyfriend used to live in his best friend's basement. The family always said it was haunted, but we didn't believe it until a few months later. We would have super crazy dreams and wake up screaming every night. One day I was taking a nap by myself and I was having a dream that I was being pulled behind the bed. When I finally woke up, the whole upper part of my body was in between the headboard and the mattress, head first. I was so scared I got up and ran out of the house. I have several, most of which I've shared on Reddit before. Here's one. My eldest son was deaf as a small child due to an inner ear malformation until he was nearly 3. He talked a little but was very hard to understand. Mostly we used sign. During this time of this story, his father, my now ex-husband, was in basic, so it was just me and my son. At night, I would hear him talking in his room, adjoining mine, but couldn't understand what he was saying. He laughed occasionally though, so it's all good. For Christmas that year, my mom made me and my sisters memory books. She copied photographs of her and my dad's family for us. Until this point, I had no pictures of my grandparents. So a few days past Christmas, I'm showing my sister-in-law in the memory book. I have my son on my lap and book on my knees. I turned to a page that had group photos of my great-grandparents and grandparents, one side paternal, the other maternal. My son's face lights up and he points at my mom's father Robert in a group photo and says, clear as anything, "That's Bob." My sister-in-law and I both about shit. I said, "How do you know him?" And my son giggles and says, "Night-night." The thing is, even if I had had a photo of my grandfather, I never called him Bob. He was just Grandpa. The other one was Grandpa George. So there's literally no way my son could have known his name and pointed him out in a group photo. I also saw something vaguely human-shaped in base housing on Shaw Air Force Base around 2005. I do not believe in ghosts, souls, etc., but I do believe there are things we do not yet understand. When I was younger, my mom would drop me off at my grandparents' house while she worked graveyard shift. Each time I would wake up in the middle of the night, it felt like if my legs were being dropped, like if my legs were levitating, and when I woke up my legs were bouncing from being dropped on the bed. I just ignored it, thinking it was just my imagination. Fast forward, adult now, talking to my older brother about scary stuff or story, and I bring up the levitating legs in the middle of the night. The look he gave me, he knew what I was talking about, and goes on to tell me that the exact same thing was happening to him when he was staying over at our grandparents' house, but he thought he was dreaming it. A story that frightened the life out of me, and no one seems to believe it. When I was 17, 11 years ago, I had an ex-boyfriend who claimed he could see ghosts. Really odd, I know, and didn't quite believe him. His dad was a bit of an odd one also. He kept doing the Ouija board, oh boy, in the house, which obviously is the worst thing you can do. So Lewis, ex-boyfriend, kept saying he can always see spirits everywhere. Never seemed to believe him at the time, as I didn't believe in ghosts. He was an only child with his mom and dad and a dog. Anyway, I stayed at his for a couple of nights as his parents were away on holiday, along with the dog. We had a very heated argument, and Lewis always warned me that if you start shouting it makes the spirits come out. Thought it was a way to scare me. So, then later on, we hear smashing downstairs, plates being thrown around, cupboard doors slamming, everything, you name it. I told Lewis there is no way in hell I'm staying here. So I got to my car, and he came with me, still arguing when we got in it. Lewis's bedroom light was still on. The whole house actually was lit. We looked up at his window, and a figure of a person bends down and shuts off the lights everywhere in the house. Lewis and I panicked and said to each other, "What the F was that? Did you see that?" Lewis then said to me, "Babe, you need to start your car now." We both saw the figure of the person walking over to my car by seeing the shadow in the cars walking to the side of my car door. I then sped off down the road for about 10 minutes, not knowing what the F to do, scared shitless. So, we did that until we could at least go back to the house, as this was in early hours of the morning, and obviously couldn't really go anywhere else at that time. We then eventually got back down the road and noticed that the bushes were moving. Honestly, no wind or anything at this time of night. There was this woman who looked like the girl from the Ring film, jumping up and down. Black long hair with her head down, no word of a lie. No one was awake down this road either. Very small, quiet street he lived down on. Pretty much shit my pants, and never went back there again. It still really haunts me to this day, as it's just so creepy. But yeah, Like I said, it's a story where no one seems to believe me, lol. I was sitting in my basement on the couch. On the right corner of my basement, we have a built-in bar. The bar has a few shelves and a mirror that lets you see the staircase going back upstairs from where I was sitting. And behind the couch I was sitting on, there's a wall, and behind that there's a staircase. I was sitting on the end of my couch furthest from the staircase and furthest from the bar. I was sitting on my phone, and I looked up to take a break, and the first thing my eyes focused on was the mirror. In the reflection of that mirror, I shit you not, I saw a completely pitch-black human-like figure turn the corner and slowly walk up the staircase. I nearly shit my pants. Keep in mind, I was also alone down there with no contact with anyone besides calling on FaceTime on my phone. Nobody could convince me to go back up the stairs, or to get up from my spot on the couch for nearly a full day. Now, I know that the person or thing or whatever it was made it all the way up the stairs. I also know that it never made it to the ground floor because the door at the top of the staircase is extremely creaky and loud. And I know for a fact they never came back down because you can bet your sweet ass as I watched that mirror like a hawk for the rest of the time I was down there. I've never experienced anything remotely paranormal in my house besides this, and I'm very young, so I know I wasn't seeing things or losing my mind. I just know that I saw something, and that something never left my house. So I posit this question back. If this person truly is a skeptic or doesn't believe in the paranormal, why then would you not leave the couch? Because if ghosts or spirits aren't real, nothing to fear. In the house I used to live in, there were very strange things going on, and I couldn't quite understand what or why. The first strange thing I should have paid more attention to was my landlady. We applied for the house to rent, and she asked, "When do you want to move in?" And we said as soon as possible, really. Her response was, "Oh good, because the tenant wants to leave straight away." I didn't really question it, to be honest, but after everything I think I knew why. So, the first strange thing that happened was the kitchen cupboard doors. I used to walk in the kitchen and a cupboard door or drawer would be open. I just thought I'd forgot to shut it. But it happened that often that I would say out loud to myself, "I'm closing the door or drawer." Then, I started having these really weird moments. I'm not going to call them dreams because they were 100% not dreams. I would lay on the sofa in the morning, maternity leave, and close my eyes. Now it takes me ages to fall asleep, and always has. And about 5 minutes of having my eyes shut, I would hear a conversation in my head. I can't really explain properly, but I wasn't hearing a physical sound through my ears. It was a conversation in my head, as though someone was speaking directly into my brain. This happened twice. One with an old man who was a mean bully, and the second time was a young boy. I can't remember the content of the conversation. Then, on the sofa, after these conversations happened, I'd open my eyes, and I saw a black figure sat where my feet were. I would put this down to just opening my eyes in the light or whatever, but the figure stood up and walked off, just like a normal human would. Another time, I was laid in bed. The lights were off except for the flashing of the TV downstairs illuminated the top of the stairs where my bedroom door was open. I genuinely thought my boyfriend at the time was trying to scare me because there was a figure crouched down in my doorway, just to the side of my dressing table. It then sprung up and ran towards me. I effing sobbed. I was absolutely terrified. I also remember having a dream, and this could absolutely be just a dream, but it still scared the shit out of me because of everything else that happened. I was dreaming that I was in my bedroom. Everything was exactly the same: the layout, the furniture, the bedding, the pillows, even the stuff on my dressing table. I was laid in bed, and I could hear a little girl singing or humming. I felt frozen with fear. I looked to my side, and my partner at the time was laid sound asleep, and I tried waking him up because I was crying. I pulled the quilt over my head and tried waking myself up, and all of a sudden, I felt a bite on my arm, like a cold bite. Then, I woke up and my arm was numb. The thing that really tipped me over the edge, however, was the night when I was in the living room with my two children. They were 3 and 4 at the time, and were sat on the sofa. I was cleaning up in the room, and all of a sudden, 3 massive bangs come from the kitchen, like loud bangs. I turned the living room light off and peeked into the kitchen to see if someone was trying to get in through the back door, but nobody was there. It had genuinely sounded like someone had a sledgehammer in my kitchen. I called my mom in a panic, and my brother and dad came down to check it out, but the back garden fence was fine. There were no marks on the door, nothing to suggest that someone had been there. To me, I was trying to rationalize it, but I know from how loud those bangs were that the sound came from inside my kitchen, not the outside. I moved from there shortly afterwards. Not ghost related, but more so of reincarnation. My mom told me when I was a toddler, I always asked about my wife. When I should be home, I'd talk about work and how I'd had to get back to my car. Sometimes she would play along and ask me why my car was so important, and I'd explained I had just been in a really bad accident and explain graphic details a toddler shouldn't know. To this day, I have graphic dreams of being in a car. It always plays out the same. I'm in an old car, and I'm driving on some sort of bridge. I fix my mirror, stare into my eyes for a moment before loud honking, swerving, and then I wake up choking and unable to breathe until I manage to use my inhaler. I still have these dreams. It's always the same. It's weird, and it might just be a result of me overthinking what my mom told me, but it still creeps me out. I was at my girlfriend's parents' house. It has an upstairs ground floor basement. The house also creaks a lot. I was sitting in the back room on the ground floor in the middle of the night browsing my phone. There were 4 people upstairs sleeping. I heard someone walk down the stairs from upstairs, go through the kitchen, and walk downstairs. I never looked in that direction, but I was distinctively sure someone went into the basement from the footsteps and floor creaking. Thought it was her brother, because he can be a night owl. Half an hour later, I realized that I didn't hear anyone go back up. I investigate, and there's no lights on in the basement, and apparently none of them got up at 3 a.m. when I ask in the morning. They also have a half-German shepherd who's very territorial, so it rules out a random intruder. It was pretty weird. I don't really believe in ghosts or paranormal stuff like that, but I don't know what could explain this. I remember that one time when I was home alone, I was downstairs in the kitchen, and I remember hearing the second floor hallway squeaking, and it sounded like someone was walking down the hall to the stairs. In this house, the floor would creak, and you could tell pretty much exactly where someone was standing at from downstairs. And when the squeaks stopped, at about where the stairs are, I heard a man clearing his throat, and I just stayed frozen in fear, and I sat in the kitchen for hours and waited for my family to get back. I feel like you could explain the throat clearing because we often had our windows open and our neighbors were outside a lot, so it may be that could be explained, but I don't know how you explain the floor creaking. Alright, this is probably not per definition what one would expect as paranormal, yet we cannot explain. We were going to a festival commemoration. Basically, the festival was cancelled due to the pandemic, but it is close enough and near a big landmark that we decided to at least hang out for half a day at the landmark. 2 cars, the one in front, packed with 4 people, ours with 3 people, and stuff with me in the back. Suddenly, the 2 up front go, "Have you seen the panda?" Yes. I blink, "Panda?" and whip around as we were on a motorway in the middle of a slower flowing traffic, to a construction. Sure enough, there's a guy in a full-on mascot panda costume with a big round panda head over his own head behind the wheel doing a little dance. I turn around and go, "Panda, behind the wheel." Yep, and he's dancing, and the second guy imitates the dance. We take a moment about how he could see with that head on, then phone the other car. Everyone in the car is utterly confused what we're talking about. There's no panda. So yeah, we've seen that car, normal car. Now we're confused and decide to go slower at the end of the construction and let the car, which had fallen behind, pass again. So we went slower and the car passed. Behind the wheel was a 40-year-old guy looking normal in a button-down, his wife at his side, a kid leaning in from the back, no panda head, no panda suit. Yes, the guys were sure it was the same license plate. I'm still lacking an explanation for that one. Maybe the driver just put a panda mask on quick and took it off to entertain his kid in the back seat, or maybe it was a mascot ghost. Either way, pretty cool. I was living in an 18th century house by myself in a rural part of New York. The house was on the corner of a narrow 2-lane road. I was laying in bed and I heard some squealing tires and then a large crash. I ran down the stairs to the kitchen to look out the window. I saw 2 cars badly wrecked. I went to the wall phone, this was before cell phones, and called 911. The lady asked me if anyone was hurt, and I said I didn't know, but it looked really bad. They should hurry. I hung up and went back to the window and saw a man from one car trying to open the driver's side door of the other car, and it wouldn't budge. The car was rocking back and forth as he tried to open it. I thought to myself, you're not supposed to move anyone when they're injured, so I decided to go out the side door and down the driveway, which had high bushes on either side, to tell the people that help was on the way. It took me maybe 8 seconds to get down to the road, and there was nothing there. No cars, no wreck, no skid marks, nothing. I was gobsmacked. I hid in the bushes as one after another came the fire truck, the police car, the ambulance. They slowly looked around and then left. I have no idea what happened, but I am a true skeptic, and just because I don't have an explanation doesn't mean it's paranormal. The people in those parts, their town goes back to the 1600s, and they think everything is haunted. A friend of mine believed it was, I don't remember what she called it, an echo, a ripple in time, of an actual accident that did happen in that spot some other time.